Nice. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Kelly, and I'm a rising sophomore at Yale University. And this summer, I worked with Reina Maruyama on the data acquisition system for the ALPHA experiment, which stands for the Axion Longitudinal Plasma HAloscope. So first, I'd like to give an introduction to this area of research. So what is dark matter? Dark matter is a hypothetical particle that does not interact with the electromagnetic field, making it invisible to us, and it only interacts gravitationally with the particles around it. So how do we know that dark matter exists if we can't see it? Well, one piece of evidence is galaxy rotation curves. So on the right here, I have a graph of the orbital velocity v of stars versus their radius from the galaxy center. So from the visible disk of a galaxy, we can expect that v is proportional to 1 over square root r, which is that dotted line. However, in reality, we measure v to have a relationship with r more like that solid line, which is flat after a certain value of r. And so because these two curves are different, we can conclude that the visible mass of a galaxy's disk is not the actual mass of the galaxy, meaning that there is invisible mass. And how is this related to axions? So axions are also a hypothetical particle, and they interact gravitationally, not through the electromagnetic field, which sounds familiar. So therefore, if axions are found to be real, then they would be a dark matter particle and would make up a large percentage of dark matter. So axions have another cool thing, which is that they solve the strong CP problem in physics. And basically, CP symmetry is when you change these, when you swap a particle to its antiparticle and flip the spatial coordinates, the strong force is conserved. And basically, theorists expect the strong force to violate CP symmetry, but we've never actually found experimental evidence that it's violated. And this is a problem that would be solved if axions exist. So finding the axion would be solving both the strong CP problem and finding dark matter, which is like eating two birds with one scone. Oh my God. So now I'd like to introduce the ALPHA experiment. The ALPHA experiment is a scientific collaboration with lots of different universities around the globe that's searching for axions. So the A in ALPHA stands for axions. The goal of the experiment is to create a tunable resonant microwave cavity, and that essentially means creating a closed metal structure, which is this cylinder in the center with an adjustable resonance frequency. And these vertical wires in the cylinder will move to adjust the resonance frequency. And there, in this cavity, there is a strong magnetic field created by this outer solenoid. And in a strong magnetic field, axions will convert into photons and resonate when the resonance frequency is correct. So the experiment's goal is to tune the cavity's frequency by moving these wires until its frequency matches the frequency of the axion, at which point we can detect the axion signal. So it's essentially like a radio, if you think about it. So now I'd like to talk about my project specifically, which is the data acquisition system. So these are the devices that I worked with. There are 9 of them in total. I worked with the vector network analyzer, 2 attenuators, 2 RC switches, 2 signal generators, the current supply, and the loudspeaker. And here's a diagram of how our networking is set up. So essentially, we have one main desktop computer with 2 IP addresses. One of them is the one that's 10 point something. It connects to the internet, Yale Secure. And the other one is connected to all of the devices in a local network. So essentially, all of these 9 devices have their own unique IP addresses and are connected via Ethernet to a switch. And every IP address is placed on the same local network, meaning that the first 2 sections of the IP address are the same. And this allows them to easily communicate with each other. And so everything in this pink box is the same local network. And then once we had established the local network, we could use remote communication by importing the socket module, which is a Python module. And the socket module establishes network connections using TCP and IP protocols. So essentially, we used the socket network to send Skippy commands and receive output from each of the devices. And here on the left, I have an example code for how we would import socket to connect to this IP address and port number using the socket connect function. And then on the right is an example of how I use socket to command the socket command to send the message, which is the Skippy command IDN or identification. And here you can see that it recovered the exact model of the device. So after we established remote communication, we had to create programs to control each of the devices using a framework called Observatory Control System, or OCS for short. And this was developed by the Simons Observatory. So basically, OCS has three main components: an agent, a client, and crossbar. So the agent is a program which takes the form of a class in Python. And this agent actually executes the tasks and processes that control the devices. And these take the form of methods of the class. And then the client is a separate Python object completely running in a separate program. And it is able to connect to the agents and control them by calling on their tasks and processes. And the client essentially acts as the user interface to interact with the agent. And then we have crossbar, which routes messages in between the agent and the client. And on the right, I have a diagram of how when the client will call a task or process, this message is routed through crossbar. And when the data executes this and publishes, when the agent executes the task and publishes data, it routes through the crossbar as well. So here are the results of our research so far. So we have created an agent for each of the 9 devices using OCS. And one example I have on the right here is the current supply agent, which is the agent for the current supply. And this is a Python class, and each of the methods in here is, well, not all of the methods are tasks and processes, but all of the tasks and processes take the form of methods within this class. So you can see that there is an initialize, a get current, and a get voltage range function, and those we have registered as tasks, meaning they execute when called by the client. And then we have one process, which is the function get error, and this is continuously running during the agent's running time. So here is one example of one of the client scripts we created. So essentially, we connected a signal generator into the vector network analyzer. And what this does is the signal generator generates a signal at a fixed frequency, and the VNA will read the output at each frequency. So the graph above is essentially the VNA output, because you can see that there is a spike at 4.5 gigahertz, which represents the power from the signal generator generating a signal at 4.5 gigahertz. And these sections of code are just the code commands we use to control the client. So first we established a connection to the agent. And then the second part, we set the frequency of the signal generator to 4.5 gigahertz. And the third part, we performed a VNA sweep. So this is just some example output of what it looks like, the user interface looks like when interacting with the agent and client. So now for the conclusion, we have mostly completed our agents for each of the data acquisition devices, but we still need to edit our code according to feedback. We just uploaded our code to GitHub a couple of days ago, and hopefully we will get some feedback. And then future plans, we hope to test our code with real components to verify that we are getting legitimate data, such as like maybe implementing some of the devices with the cavity once that is complete. And then later, the DAQ network needs to be moved to the room with the actual experiment. So we will have to do a little bit more networking to figure that out. But for now, it is currently at the desk. And this is a behind the scenes photo of the like wire monster we have on our desk. And all the devices and the desktop. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Questions?
Do everything in Python, or did you compare other programming systems?
We did run everything in Python because I think what we really wanted to do was use the observatory control system, OCS, and that whole like framework was written for Python. So yeah. Any question?